Most revered Swami Gautamanandaji Maharaj, revered Swamis Satyadevanandaji, Sarvalokanandaji, Atmapriyanandaji, Muktidanandaji Maharaj, this galaxy of revered Swamijis present, dear friends, devotees, and well-wishers. As you just heard, I'm at present posted in the Vedanta Society of New York. The most important event in New York, annual event, biggest and most important event, is the New York Marathon. And so, if you see the preparations for this New York Marathon, which happens just at the doorstep of the Vedanta Society, there's a Central Park, and there the preparations go on, you will be happy and delighted. I think every Indian will be happy and delighted to see this New York Marathon is sponsored and organized by the Tata Consultancy Services. I have often seen Indians, when they are walking in the park, it brings a smile to their face. It brings a smile to my face also when I see TCS written there, and the officers and the engineers in TCS in New York, they are working day and night to prepare for the marathon. And after the whole day of the marathon concludes in the Central Park, which is at the doorstep of the Vedanta Society of New York. So this is very significant. In order to understand the significance of this, why it seems so symbolic to me, we have to go back to 1893. And the story starts here in Mumbai, in the gateway of India. A few days ago, we went to see with revered Maharaj, Swami Vivekananda's statue there. And in that, it's inscribed that Swami Vivekananda sailed from here, the gateway of India, for the United States to attend the World Parliament of Religions in 1893. But on that ship, there was another person, a Parsi businessman, who was going to the United States in search of business opportunities, Jamshedji Tata. And we all know the story, how on the ship, this Hindu sannyasi and this Parsi businessman, they got together and started talking. What did they talk about? Did they talk about religion? Did they talk about business? Not really. Swami Vivekananda said to Jamshedji that India needs science and research in science and technology, and it would be wonderful if you could set up an institute for scientific research in India. I mean, it's so significant, so amazing that a monk representing Hinduism, a young person, very young person, going across the world, halfway across the world to an unknown land, and he meets somebody from his own country, not even of his own religion, and then they talk about the future of India, and they talk about science and technology and research. And we know the story, how it developed. Years later, Jamshedji wrote to Swami Vivekananda, saying that, if you remember, we met on the ship to America, and I am seized of this idea that you gave me to establish as an institute for scientific research in India. I'm going to do that, and I cannot think of anybody better than you to be the director of this institute. The letter is still there, and it's also inscribed in the institute which came about finally in Bangalore. You have the Indian Institute of Science. Earlier it was called the Tata Institute. In fact, even now, the autowalas, they call it the Tata Institute. So it was established because of this dialogue between Vivekananda and Jamshedji. Of course, it was not so easy. We now know the later history of this, how it came about. Jamshedji passed away, Swami Vivekananda passed away long before this institute was established. The British government, and the money was collected, the land was designated, the British government said the natives of India do not need science and technology. So there's no need to establish such an institute. Sister Nivedita fought tooth and nail in India. She took it to the British Parliament. and finally got permission for establishing this institute, which was later set up. Now, the significance of this, Swami Vivekananda's vision of Vedanta, it is not just conventional spirituality. We understand what spirituality is. We understand it is meditation, it is devotion, it is temples and rituals and bhakti. It is also the study of the Upanishads and the Gita. It is monks and devotees. But Swami Vivekananda extends this Krishna Math and Ramakrishna Mission here in Mumbai. This year we are also celebrating the 125th year of the Ramakrishna Mission itself. This is another aspect of Swami Vivekananda's vision for Vedanta. See, it again goes back to the United States. One day he came home to the place where he was staying and said to his hostess, an elderly American lady, he said, "Madam, today I have fallen in love." And the lady was a little amused. She said, "Who is the lucky woman?" And Swami Vivekananda laughed and said, "Oh, it is not a lady, it is organization." Fall in love with the idea of organization. See, when I went to the United States a few years ago, people asked me, both in the United States and here, that when you went to the United States, what is it that struck you? What is that you found to be different, new, surprising, intriguing? And these days, there's nothing so new or different or, I can imagine 40, 50 years ago, when we went from India to the United States, we would see something different. We would, it would be very interesting. But nowadays, because of the whole world linked together through media and internet and all, we know what's there. We see it in magazines and newspapers, on internet. We see it. So what is so new about it? But there is one thing which I found new, which we cannot see here if we go there and stay for a certain amount of time and we observe American society, something which is very inherent there. The power and the knack of organization. I remember I was there, I was initially posted to our Vedanta Society in Hollywood. Somebody asked, "Why in Hollywood? Why do you have an ashram in Hollywood?" Swami Prabhavanandaji, the founder, he used to say, "We were here before Hollywood became Hollywood." So, but what I noticed was, an interesting feature I noticed there was that at every level there was an informal or formal organization. So in the Hollywood, what in Bengali we would call para, ilaka, that's that particular area, the community. For every problem they would get together. There would be a community meeting, whether you are a member of an ashram or an apartment building, whoever you are, meeting will be there. Is there a problem of drug addicts? Is there a problem of criminals? Is there a problem of littering? And the mayor's office has to send a representative. The police commissioner has to send a representative, and they will do what the community wants them to do. See the power of organization. And this is what Swami Vivekananda saw there in Western society, in American society, more than 100 years ago when he went there. He saw this power, and therefore he translated it into these organizations which we now know as the Ramakrishna Math and the Ramakrishna Mission. He established the Vedanta Society of New York in 1894, one of the first ashrams of our order. Not the very first, because already the monastery was there in Baranagar and later in Alambajar. But there, one day, Swami Vivekananda was sitting for breakfast. This was in New York in around maybe 1894-95. And they were going to publish one of his lectures as a pamphlet. And the printer, a Dutchman, he came to meet Swami Vivekananda and said, "Swami, it would be helpful if we have a logo, a symbol." And Swami Vivekananda, sitting there at the breakfast table, he sketched out the symbol of the Ramakrishna Math and Ramakrishna Mission. When you look at it, is it here? Yes. So if you will see it as wavy waters, a swan swimming on the waters, the sun rising in the background, a lotus blooming in the foreground, and the whole thing encircled by a serpent. Swami Vivekananda sketched it out, and on a piece of paper. And he tossed it across to the printer, to the gentleman, and said, draw it to scale. And that's how we got the logo. And that encapsulates Swami Vivekananda's vision of Vedanta. He explained later that the lotus blooming, it represents devotion, love of God. The wavy waters represent karma, action in this world. The sun rising at the back, it represents jnana, knowledge of self, knowledge of Brahman. And the whole thing being encircled by the serpent, it is the power of yoga, he said. The Kundalini power or the power of yoga. In two different places he has given two different interpretations. And by a combination of work and love and knowledge and yoga of concentration, one can realize God, which is symbolized by the swan, the Paramatman, the swan swimming in the water. So this is, in essence, Swami Vivekananda's ideal of the four yogas, the harmony of four yogas, which Swami Aptapriyanji just so eloquently spoke about just now. This idea was there throughout in Indian spiritual history. There are different modes in which one can be spiritual. One way is the way of devotion, where the problem is stated as that God exists, but we do not have devotion to God. And the solution is to have love, faith, devotion to God, to worship God, to surrender to God. So this is the path of bhakti. God exists. How do I know? Take it on faith. Your guru is telling you, scriptures are telling you, holy people are telling you, so God exists. Take it on faith. And worship, love God until one gets a transcendent experience, when it becomes no more just a question of I believe, but then it will become I know. But still, that is the path of devotion, path of love. There is another path, the path of yoga, where it says not so much a question of faith. Patanjali tells us that not so much a question of faith, it's a matter of experience. Swami Vivekananda, when he went to America, he said religion is realization, not just believing in something. So it's a question of direct experience of the suprasensuous, of the transcendent reality. And how do you do it? The problem is not lack of faith, solution is not faith, the problem is restless mind, chitta vritti. And the solution is chitta vritti nirodha, settling the restlessness of the mind in deep focus and in deep meditation in samadhi. So that's the yogic way. And very, very important for this day and age. Swami Vivekananda stressed it in America. He realized that this is the age of empirical experience, of direct experience. It's no use saying you have to believe in this. People had heard that for centuries, that you have to believe in religion because the church says so, the book says so, the preacher says so. But Vivekananda said, you believe in religion because it's a question of experience. One can experience God. That's what made Vivekananda Vivekananda. Narendranath goes to Sri Ramakrishna and asks, have you seen God? And Sri Ramakrishna says, yes, I have seen God, just as I see you, even more clearly. So this appeal of experience, I can see God, I can experience God. That is the path of yoga. There's also another path, that it is not so much a question of faith or not faith, it's not so much a question of calming the mind or not calming the mind, it's a question of ignorance and knowledge. And the path of jnana says, you are Brahman, and you just do not know it, and through a method of Vedantic inquiry, we will come to know it and see for ourselves. So all these paths were there, jnana, bhakti, yoga, and karma. All our activities usually are selfish in motive. What can I get for myself? If you can convert it into unselfish activity, it will lead directly to God realization. All these paths were there. Now, what had usually happened was, in Sanatana Dharma, in fact, in all the traditional paths, all the four yogas are included, but usually there is a hierarchy. If you ask Shankaracharya, he will say that bhakti is helpful, karma is definitely helpful, meditation is very helpful, but none of them will give you God realization. Enlightenment will come only through jnana, because the real problem is ignorance of the self, and therefore knowledge of the self will lead to enlightenment. If you ask Sri Ramanujacharya or Sri Madhvacharya, same question. Which yoga will lead to enlightenment? They will say, not jnana, not even karma. Poor karma usually used to have the lowest rank. These are helpful for preparation, but devotion, bhakti alone will lead to God realization. And all of these are true. Sri Ramakrishna gives his stamp of approval to all these paths, having practiced each of them in turn and realized the same truth. He said, Jato mat tato pat, as many faiths, so many ways to God realization. And Swami Vivekananda, he made a formula of the harmony of the four yogas. It is not that one yoga alone will lead to enlightenment and all the others are preparatory. But all of them can individually. Vivekananda says very clearly, individually, by one or more or all of these, one can attain to God realization. By the path of jnana, yes, certainly. By the path of bhakti alone, yes, certainly. By the path of meditation alone, yes, certainly. Even by the path of just selfless work, one can attain to God. But Swami Vivekananda's great insight, and by the way, all these Vedantic insights of Swami Vivekananda, they were drawn entirely from a reading of Sri Ramakrishna's life, as Swami Atmapriyanji was just saying. Swami Vivekananda's great insight was, it is much more powerful to combine the four yogas. It is much more safe to combine the four yogas. It is much more wholesome to combine the four yogas. So he said, by a combination, by one or more or many of these, or all of these paths, by devotion, by service, by psychic control or meditation, and by knowledge. In fact, he used the word philosophy. By philosophy, by one or more or all of these, attain to God realization. So this harmony of the four yogas, without any hierarchy, that's represented by that amazing diagram, that logo which Swami Vivekananda drew on the piece of paper at the breakfast table, and he tossed it across the table and he said, draw it to scale. Another aspect, insight, I will mention. We talk about, 11th September 1893, the World Parliament of Religions, and Swami Vivekananda, his message in Chicago, the World Parliament of Religions. That's how we know Vivekananda. That's how we understand 11th September. But in New York, if you say 9/11, it means something else. In New York, 9/11 is tantamount, is identified with religious fanaticism, not with liberality. It is identified with violence, not with peace. And this happened more than 100 years after Swami Vivekananda's historic speech in Chicago, on the same date. So, it's just a coincidence, but it's a stark reminder of the continuing relevance of Swami Vivekananda's message of the harmony of religions. In this country, as Indians, especially as Hindus, because for us it seems evident, it's of the spirit of Hinduism, that there are many different ways of being spiritual. There are many different forms in which one may worship God. It is for us devotees, followers of Sri Ramakrishna, it is evident. It's something that we accept easily. For us, Hindus in general, we accept this easily. You will be surprised. I have seen it again and again, a peculiar narrowness about religion. It persists till this day. Even among the most, advanced countries, in the United States I see it all the time. Either people are very liberal, they don't care about religion at all. You practice whatever, it's fine. Why? Because now all of it is wrong anyway, or I'm not interested. That's one kind. And many people are there like that. But there are others where it seems to be, the feeling seems to be, if you are seriously interested in religion, you have to be narrow. I'll tell you one incident. The World Parliament of Religions in Toronto, it's still held, the World Parliament of Religions, periodically. So in Toronto in 2018, there was one session in which an evangelist, who are generally quite fundamentalist, Christian evangelist, he was going to give a talk. And he said, the goal of our path, our teaching is you follow Jesus Christ and try to live a life according to the ideals of Jesus Christ, and to tell others the error of their ways and to bring them to our path. So I asked a question, that the first path is very beautiful. to live according to the ideals of Jesus Christ is very beautiful. But the second part, is it so important to tell everybody else that you are wrong, you have to come to our path? And he said, yes, this is very interesting. He said that, no, that is what we are taught. And this is a fundamental part of our practice, to bring everybody else to our path. So even now, it is extremely relevant. Swami Vivekananda's message of the harmony of religions. Each path can lead to God realization. I used to be surprised when I came across these narrow sentiments in the United States. I couldn't understand. Why is there so much resistance to this idea of the harmony of religions? It's a good idea. It's a useful idea. And it's beneficial. And it seems true. If only one path is true. In fact, let me tell you this and I'll conclude. One of our senior Swamis, an American Swami, he became a monk many, many years ago, decades ago. I asked him, how did you become a monk in the Ramakrishna order? He said, I grew up in a very conservative part of the United States, in North Carolina. And I was interested in religion, but I found every little church was criticizing every other church. They were saying, we alone have the truth and everybody else is going to go to hell. We are true, we are right, everybody else is wrong. And this, he said, I was a young man, I thought maybe we are also wrong then. If everybody is wrong, how is it that only we can be right? So probably everybody is wrong. Now, years later, he said, I came across Vedanta for the Western World, a publication, and there I came across the idea, not that one is right and everybody is wrong. Not that everybody is wrong also. In fact, everybody is right. Everybody is right. This idea I got from Vedanta, and I said, this is the path that I want to follow. I really believe this, and I'm so happy to see that here is a teaching from a religion which teaches this very truth, that all religions are true. I used to find it strange. Why don't people accept it? Until somebody explained to me that, from a certain perspective, a Western perspective, to say that all religions are true is to say that religions are not true. They cannot be true. Because truth is one, everything else has to be false, and somehow that one truth is to be my truth. Somehow the religion that I belong to is true, everything else has to be false. So when they are introduced to this idea that all of these are paths leading to one truth. So this is a new idea. It is very common and easily accepted by us, but it's a new idea for the rest of the world. And Swami Vivekananda's vision of Vedanta, mission of Vedanta, one part of it was to spread this idea across the world. I have run out of time, so I'll conclude by saying I pray to Sri Sri Thakur, Ma and Swamiji to bless all of us. May we imbibe these very powerful ideas. There's a saying, there is nothing so powerful as an idea whose time has come. And the time of Ramakrishna and Vivekananda has come. And it is spreading across the world, and it will do so more powerfully in the centuries ahead. Let us imbibe these ideas, become blessed ourselves, and let our lives be a blessing to others. Thank you so much. Thank you.